Good morning, Naomi. Hey, Bob, how you doing? And
I just had to turn my mute off.
oh,
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy Friday.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah. Hey, Betty. How are you? Betty may be muted as well. Okay.
So I tried to name that file this morning.
Yes.
I don't know if you got it or not, and couldn't name, but I thought that was really interesting video. I've
seen that a couple of times.
Have you? Okay. I didn't know if you had.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. We'll probably try to share it this afternoon.
Okay.
And let everybody take a look at it. Yeah, because it's an interesting it's an interesting idea, watching this person evolve,
Yes.
from a young baby into an older person and then back again.
A mature person.
Yes. Yeah, but anyway. So everybody having a pretty good week? Hey, Eloise, how are you doing? Naomi, are you talking to me yet?
Yes, I'm talking. I got your message. I printed out all those, the homework.
Okay, good. Good. What do you think about all that?
I think it's interesting. Do you want us to do one or more than one?
Again, it's more about the process. So what I would recommend that you do is that you start off with kind of a series of small little sketches or drawings.
Okay.
Trying to figure out the elements that you want to use. What do you want to say? What's the composition going to be like? And then, you can play around with trying to figure out what medium do I want to do this in? Do I want to do it in paint? Do I want to do it just as a drawing? Do I want to do it as a watercolor? The medium's open. Do I want to make a mixed media piece out of it? Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
sounds good.
Yeah, you've got, hey, it's pretty wide.
It is. I noticed that.
Whole world.
You can do anything you want to do. What I don't want you doing is I don't want you sitting there studiously copying.
Oh, okay.
Those images. See,
okay,
good.
Good.
Those are really only for inspiration, just to give
Yeah.
you an idea, to get you to, get you thinking, right?
But it'll be fun to see what everybody else interprets or does. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And now, look, I know that I sent you, some like location photos, various places with, different times of day, the sky, different color backgrounds, things like that, and then I sent you some figures, right? Well, you can use any of those. You can use all of those. And you can take little bits and pieces from different ones. Like, for example, one of those landscapes, it may not be an interesting landscape to paint, but maybe you use some of the color, or you use the value contrast, or you use the composition from it, and then you place other elements in it and make it your own. See?
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you guys something, again, and the key here is I want you to play. See, I want you to experiment. I want you to get outside your box. Don't do something that you're comfortable with doing already. Try something a little different, right? I mean,
that's the only way you learn, really. by doing, I learn more from my mistakes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this could end up being a total, like a lot of these end up being like a total disaster.
There's no disaster. It's
Well,
all learning.
No, they
It's
could.
all learning. Yeah.
They could be a total disaster, and that's okay.
Yeah.
See, and you're right. That's okay, even if it is. Maybe it turns out like you don't like this piece, or you're not comfortable with, that medium. But you've learned something in the process, and see, there's things that you can take away, from going through this process that you can incorporate and make your own into your habits, into the way.
That's all a good thing, because when I don't copy, I mean, I'm kind of lost, so I got to play with that some more.
Right. Yeah. And kind of where I was going with that conversation is, I know that some of us, okay, are not exactly representational painters, right? Some of us, kind of go more to the abstract or, just decorative sort of, design type things. And that's fine. See, just because I gave you a couple of human figures, that doesn't mean that you have to do the human figure. But you could take one of those human figures and look and find a couple of fluid lines in that figure and try to incorporate it into your composition on your page, and then still do that sort of abstract, kind of decorative approach, right?
I think it's a good lesson. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah, it just gives you guys something to start with, and again, I gave you, I think, 10 images, and different people will pick, different sets of images to work with. Some people will gravitate toward doing a figure or a face. Some people will gravitate.
I'm going to try more than one.
Yeah, you should. Until you really come up with, hey, I'm really excited about doing this. And then when you kind of hit on that thing that you're really excited to do, then do it. Okay.
This is Bob. Did you send out a general email or
I
to
did.
everybody?
Yes.
Oh, I did not get it. So
It should have come with 10 photos attached. It's an art challenge.
no, I did not receive it.
Okay. Well, check your spam.
I'll check my spam box maybe.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because we've had that happen before, where I send you something and it ends up in in the trash or the spam folder.
You must be classified as a spammer.
Pardon?
You must be classified as a spammer.
Well, yeah. Since I'm sending it out to like 40 people or 50 people. Yeah. I mean, they could look at that and go, "Oh, this guy's spamming people."
Right.
No.
You can set your email so that it will recognize that he is not spam.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can.
No, I generally get all your emails, but
Okay.
that one I did not get.
Okay. Well, again, if it didn't come through, just let me know and I will resend it to you.
Sometimes if there are too many attachments, your server won't accept it.
Well, that's possible.
And sometimes it's the communicator.
Yeah.
The Comcast or whoever you got, they're terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes to the cloud, sure enough.
And then let's not forget, sometimes it's user error.
You're right. You're right. In my case, it's all the time, probably.
No, but I mean, I've been there, it's like, oh God, how do I do that? And then, somebody goes like, oh, you don't know how to do that? Here, you just, oh, okay. That's,
It looks like Bob is on the list that you sent out.
yes, he is.
Bob Homer at Comcast.net.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we'll figure it out. If I have to send him smoke signals, I guess I'll do that. I don't know. We'll work it out.
Half Indian, we can read it through the building.
Never mind. I found it.
Oh, you found it?
I get so much junk in this that it's hard to keep up sometimes. Thank you.
I try to go through every day and take mine out because I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to turn them off, but it popped back on here, another name.
All right, so let's we're over time now, so let's actually get started. Okay, is everybody doing okay today? It's Friday.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, everybody got their coffee. Everybody kind of wide awake.
Yep.
Good, because we got some things to cover today. Okay, this is about drawing, right? And the name of the class is actually Drawing Techniques, if you've forgotten. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do a couple. Well, I'm going to do 2 videos. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the holiday. Okay. In fact, let's talk about the holiday now. What is it? Memorial Day? Yeah.
Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Yeah. It's that,
Labor Day.
yeah. It's that day. Anybody feeling like they're being in labor on Monday? I hope not.
No,
Okay.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been in labor in a long time. Thank you.
And I haven't labored in a
We
while.
gotta do this George for you, so that's labor.
But yeah. But Monday is Labor Day. It will be an official holiday, so there will be no class on Monday, even though we actually had one scheduled. Okay. So just to let you know that we will be back
On
on
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay. Just so you know, that would be the painting class, right? And the notice, yeah, the notice that I sent out, notice that I gave you a date. It was September the 21st, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's a Monday, okay? And that is the Monday of the last week that we have classes,
Yeah.
okay? Yeah, okay? Because after that, after Friday, I'm going to take an extended vacation. If the
How
power,
extended?
a month, Yeah.
A month.
yeah, 30 days.
I'll be sorry. Glad
well,
you're lucky. Sorry we missed you.
Well, and I'm going to miss you guys too. Okay, but one of the reasons that I'm taking that extended vacation is because I'm getting ready to retire next summer. Okay, and I guess as it turns out, I'm probably not going to be in the Atlanta area. Okay. And so I've been on a quest for really the last 4 months to figure out where I'm going to be. Okay. And I have not determined that yet, you know, and I'm looking at places like New Mexico, Colorado, Illinois, Kansas, Arkansas, parts of Georgia, you know, both in the South and the North. I'd like to end up somewhere around Chattanooga or somewhere like that.
Is just muted or not?
No, you're not muted, Billy.
Okay.
And, you know, since the Randolphs are on, you know, actually one of the places I'm actually considering is a place called Alexander City, Alabama.
Oh, that's a nice little small town.
Yeah, there's a really pretty house there that I really like. And Billy and Linda introduced me to Alexander City. And it's, you know, it's a nice little town, and it's an interesting place to be.
It's close to Birmingham, and they have a nice museum there.
Well, yeah, Birmingham's got a great museum, but Alexander City is kind of a small town.
Very small town.
Yeah, you know, and it's right there on Lake Martin, and,
Yep.
and it's
Nice.
beautiful. You know, if you're a landscape painter, it's a great place to be.
Yep.
So, but you know, as of tonight, somewhere around about maybe 7 or 8 o'clock, you know, I'm going to, you know, kiss Maria goodbye, and I'm actually taking a long drive over the weekend, and I'm going to a place called Harrisburg, Illinois.
Oh, brother.
And the reason I'm going to Harrisburg, Illinois is, you know, one, it's an interesting area. It's the Shawnee National Forest is there. But also there's a beautiful old house that I can actually afford to pay cash for. So I'm, you know, that's one of the ones on the list that I'm kind of considering.
And how much will it cost you to fix it up to live in?
Actually, nothing. Well, probably something, but not very much. The house was built in 1900, and it pretty much so like the day it was built. I mean, it's been in one family, you know, the whole time, and I'm buying it from one of the, well, you know, the patriarch of the family right now, who is finally letting go of the house because his kids don't want it. So
Well, the thing about it is, if they took care of it, that's what I'm talking about. A
they
lot of
did.
it,
They did. It's amazing. In fact, I can show you pictures. You know, it's great. But anyway, while I'm up there, or while I'm headed up there, again, we have a little bit of time, and it's about. I understand it's about a 9-hour drive. So I'm going to be driving and stopping, and you know, doing some sketching and drawing and painting and photographing and stuff like that. Because it's. I'll be going right up. Not into Nashville, but past Nashville, you know, and up into Kentucky and Illinois from there. And it should be a beautiful drive. And particularly at this time of year, it's a little too early for the fall leaves yet, but it's still kind of like that early autumn. And as you get further north, they're getting
cooler, and you'll miss the ice and snow.
Yes, that's the idea. Is I don't want to be there for the ice and snow. Thank you. I can pass on that. I'm not a big ice and snow fan, but
Me either.
yeah,
But
but
it's up north.
yeah, if I ever move there, you know, that's something I'm gonna have to get used to, you know. But then again, I did live and survive 2 years of Kodiak, Alaska. So
Oh, well, you
Wow.
You're ready. You're ready.
yeah, you're tough, Charles. You can take it if you were in a.
yeah, so I think I can make it go there. Is there anybody in the group? Does anybody come from Illinois or that part of the country, Ohio or something like that? Yeah.
I was born in Chicago, lived there till I was 12 years old,
Yeah. Okay.
and
So-
I remember as a child in Chicago, all the kids when I was in school, there were no cafeterias, so we had to go to school for 8:30. We came home for 12. We went back to school at 1, and then we came home at 3. Winter, spring, it made no difference. And we all learned how to walk backwards. So that was my yeah, because you walk with the wind to your back.
Right.
And so I could walk,
I'm from Kenosha, Wisconsin, infamous Kenosha,
Okay.
about 90 miles from Chicago. So
I'm telling the truth,
had a
right?
few winters.
Yes. And so we walked, I mean, I could walk like miles backwards, and it was no big deal. It's cold. I was so happy when my parents gathered us together and said, we're moving to New Orleans. My brother cried and I did cartwheels. So
Well, yeah, it's a radically different climate, you know.
Oh.
And I mean, that's the thing I keep going back and forth about. It's like, you know, I've been in the South now for 33 years, you know, and I came from the West. And, you know, really, I'm a Westerner. I'll never be a Southerner, really. But, you know, but there's things I like about the South. And I've never lived in the North, you know, the Midwest or Northeast United States. So, you know, it'll be a new experience.
it will be.
You know,
That's for sure.
if I end up there, I could also, like I said, I could end up in New Mexico or Kansas or anywhere else.
I'm voting
Yeah,
New Mexico.
I've lived
Go to
in
New Mexico.
Ohio. I've lived in Ohio and Kansas,
Yeah.
and it's cold. And the winters the summers in Kansas are brutal too. Very high humidity, very hot. But you gotta like snow and cold.
Yeah.
To live up in any of that area.
Yeah. Well, my daughter.
It's amazing how the summers are almost like they are here, hot and humid.
Yeah. Well, now.
I think it's worse.
Yeah. Well, now in Kansas, it's hot, but it's it's drier. It's not quite as humid in Kansas.
Oh, it was miserable. I lived in Topeka and in Kansas City.
Oh,
It was extremely hot and humid. It was really miserable. Plus tornadoes to deal with.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now my daughter lives in Wellington, which is just south of Wichita, and it's pretty dry out there because I went out there. What was it? 2 summers ago, and spent a couple of weeks, out, painting all of central and western Kansas with her, and it's pretty dry out in that area. But you know, it's different. It's a different environment, different landscape.
Yeah, I was in the northeast part of
Yeah,
Kansas.
Kansas City. Yeah, yeah. You were in the cultured part of Kansas.
Yeah, Hallmark cards.
Yeah, about the only cultured part of Kansas. Really. So, yeah, I mean, it's like once you get away from Kansas City, you know, I mean, you know, Wichita is not a bad city. It's nice, you know, it is a nice city, but it kind of reminds me of being like in LA because it's just nothing. There's no like center part of the city. It's all just continuous suburbs, you know, all of Wichita. It's crazy, but anyhow. All right. So let's start dealing with drawing. But anyway, that's where I'm going to be this weekend, but I will be back on Wednesday. Okay?
Are you going to talk about the assignment you sent us today, Charles?
We did somewhat. Did you come
Oh,
in?
okay.
Yeah, already did.
Well, no, I mean, we can talk about it again.
Wow.
What do you want to know about it? Do you have a question?
No, I don't have not a question so much. I'm really excited about it. I couldn't sleep because I was thinking about it and started working on it. And it's really a good assignment. And I'm glad to know that Johnny's already done his. Wow, John, I'm impressed.
You know,
You didn't show it to us.
Johnny on the spot, you know.
That's right, Johnny on the
Hold
spot.
it up and let's see what you thought of, kid.
There you go. All right.
I was amazed with the picture, especially with the young man, the model. How long was he in that pose? That been horrible. The pain.
Well, he probably was not there very long. Again,
Okay.
because now that came from a website called Proco, right?
Okay.
Which I have told you guys about if you want to practice your figure drawing. And they have male, female models, both nude, clothes, everything. You know, it's basically a website set up
What's
for
the
artists.
website name?
Pardon?
What's the website's name?
Proco, Proko, Proco.com. And the thing is, you know, now they have a lot of videos, you know, like tutorial videos that they're going to try to sell you. Okay. That's the purpose of the website. But a lot of the website is free. Like the reference materials and stuff are totally free. So you can, you know, you can actually set it up so that you have, you know, you're working with 2 or 3 models or a model in particular. And
Oh.
and you can have like a whole series of photos of that model in different poses. And
Oh.
and you can time it where they'll do a series of like short gesture poses for like a minute or 2 minutes. And then it will begin to lengthen out to a group of 5-minute poses and then 10-minute and then maybe like a couple of long 20-minute poses. See, so it's just like taking a figure drawing class. See?
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a great, you know, it's a great tool, you know, for somebody who's going to, you know, isolate themselves in the middle of Illinois or Kansas, you know, where there's not a lot of art schools and stuff. You know, if I miss figure drawing, you know, I can get on Proco and draw, right? You know, or, you know, like, you know, if you're quarantining, right? Like we are,
Hey.
you know, again, you know, it gives you that, it's not the exact same experience, but it's a pretty good experience of, you know, being able to be like in a drawing group, you know, with other artists. You know, you miss the camaraderie, you know, the talking with people and stuff, but you still get to work on your drawing skills. And again, it's free, okay, you know, to do things like that. And if you look online, you can find other sites that are similar to it. But this particular, the figure reference that I shared with you guys, that was all from Proco. Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's a great site to work with. In fact, we've watched a couple of drawing videos from, I think his name is Stan Prognowski or something like that. He did one of the demo videos that I played for you guys on a Friday. Okay. You know, because that whole site is about improving your drawing skills. That's all it's about. Okay. Is becoming really effective at being able to draw. Okay. So, As far as the assignment though, and lady, I said some things that were really directed particularly at you, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you weren't here to enjoy them, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah.
you know, I set out a variety of reference, you know, landscapes, figures, you know, I didn't send any flowers or anything like that. But again, you know, the purpose of this assignment is not to sit down and faithfully render and draw the things I sent you. It's to take all of those things and to borrow, you know, from a couple of them. Like maybe like one of the sunsets or something, you like the color range or something in it, right? And so that doesn't mean you have to do a landscape. You could just do a painting, an abstract painting or something, using those kind of soft colors, right? Or with the figures, you know, maybe you don't want to use the figure. But maybe what you can find in there, like you were talking about that one pose, the male figure, you know, maybe it's the line or the shape or the composition, right? If you took, you know, a couple of pieces of paper and you cropped in on a section, you know, like of his shoulder or down to his hips, like that, you might find, you know, in that rectangle, there's some interesting spaces and divisions of spacing things, again, that you can use as a composition, you know, for, you know, a painting, like one of your abstract paintings or something like that. So you see, it's not do a male figure, but it's like use things from the male figure. You know, and
Yeah.
if you want to incorporate the idea of an actual human figure in your painting, you can, but I'm just saying, you know, don't just sit there and copy it. That's not the purpose of it.
Well, yeah. There's no way I could copy any of those. There's one of them. One of the landscapes you have of the. It looks like a lake.
Mhm.
I don't know if you noticed. There's a manhole cover in one of them.
Oh, well, there may be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in love with that manhole cover.
You're in love with the manhole cover. Okay. There you go. See, there's something in there for everybody.
Oh yeah. The
Okay.
manhole.
All right. So anyway, that's kind of the you know, the idea behind the assignment. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, let's get rocking and rolling. I'm going to share with you a video. Somebody's talking? Hello? Okay. No, I guess not. All right. Let's use this one right here. Okay. Okay. Now all I have to do is find it in all of the windows that I've got open over here. All right. Can everybody see it's you know, pencil drawing techniques?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we're all on the same page. All right. So I'm going to hit this thing. And we're going to get started. Now, unfortunately, this is YouTube, so there's going to be ads.
Absolutely, that's the bottom line.
Yeah,
At
this
this
guy.
moment in time, you need to know how to.
In this lesson, we'll take a look at 7 different pen or graphite application techniques. A graphite pencil is normally what we reach for when we're first learning how to draw. But knowing how to use graphite to its fullest potential is important to your success. In this video, we're going to take a look at 7 different application techniques so that you can create the effects that you want in your own drawings. Let's dive in. We'll start by discussing hatching. Hatching is a method of developing tone and value in the illusion of form through the use of lines that do not intersect each other. You can clearly see here that the higher the concentration of lines, the darker the tone or the value. The more space left between lines, the lighter the value is perceived. When hatching is used, the form of the subject should be considered. Lines that are added should flow over the form of the subject. In this case, they curve slightly. These lines are called cross-contour lines, and when they're used, they add to the illusion of form. To make areas darker, like we are here in the area of core shadow, all we need to do is go back and add additional lines. The amount of space left between each line determines the overall tone or value. And in this case, we'll add a bit of cast shadow behind the sphere. Again, we'll use lines that do not cross over each other in order to create the illusion of the tone. The next method we'll discuss is called cross-hatching. Cross-hatching begins in the same manner as hatching. The only difference between hatching and cross-hatching is that with cross-hatching, the lines cross over each other. The more frequently these lines cross over each other, the darker the tone or the value. And just as we considered the cross-contour lines with hatching, we'll also consider the cross-contour lines with cross-hatching as well, following the form of the subject. And since we're drawing a sphere, the lines should curve slightly. There's quite a bit more flexibility when cross-hatching is used compared to hatching, because you can always layer additional strokes over the top of the marks that you've already made. Because precise lines are required for both hatching and cross-hatching, it's advised to keep a sharp tip if either one of these approaches is chosen. And just like we did with hatching, we'll add a bit of cast shadow behind the sphere as well. But this time, we're free to allow the marks to cross over each other. The next technique we'll discuss is definitely the quickest way to layer marks on a surface. This method is using scribbled lines or random lines. Basically, the premise is the same as using hatching and cross-hatching. The more frequently we have lines that cross over each other, the darker the value. But because we're working with graphite, we also have the added advantage of adjusting the amount of pressure placed on the pencil as well. Less pressure will result in logically a lighter mark, while heavier pressure will result in a darker one. This method is great for sketching or laying down visual information quickly. It can even be used to create a finished drawing. The next application technique is called stippling. Stippling is where countless small dots are added to the drawing surface. The higher the concentration of the dots, the darker the perceived value. The more space left between the dots, the lighter the perceived value. This method is definitely the most time-consuming approach, and in most circumstances, this approach is used for pen and ink applications instead of graphite applications. But as you can see here, if you use a graphite that's soft enough, like this 2B pencil, then you can produce some attractive results using stippling as well. The next graphite application technique is referred to as circling. Circling occurs when small circular strokes are made with the pencil, and the pressure applied to the pencil is controlled by the artist. This typically results in a smooth gradation of tone and value from dark to light. But don't let the name fool you or mislead you. You're not actually creating small circles with this approach. You're just rotating the pencil as you apply varying amounts of pressure in a circular motion. And depending on the position of your hand, these circular strokes may be circular or they may be more oval-like. With this approach, a duller pencil usually produces better quality results. If the pencil becomes too sharp, then lines may be evident as this technique is used. This technique, as I mentioned before, gives the artist a high level of control over the gradation of value, but it also allows the texture of the paper to play a role in the drawing, which may be something that you're looking for. The next technique is called blending, and blending starts the same way as circling does. Graphite is applied to the surface using varied amounts of pressure using circular controlled stroke.
You see, the world has changed. You don't need to sell at events and galleries anymore. You can go directly.
Strokes. Once applied to the surface, the artist can then reach for a blending stump and start to work the graphite material into the tooth or texture of the paper. Here again, you can see that circular strokes are used here as well to control the amount of blending that occurs. The blending stump should be viewed as an additional mark-making tool, just as a pencil. The directional strokes that are made with the blending stump should mimic those that were made with the pencil originally.
Okay, let me stop this here, okay? Because there's one thing I want to point out about using a stump is that, you see, he started by blending really on the shadow side, right? And the problem with doing that is that if you've got a stump that's just a one-ended stump, not a two-end, then when you start blending and you start picking up all that graphite, you know, from the dark, when you get to the light, your stump is going to be loaded with that graphite, and so it's going to kind of fill that in. So my recommendation here is you start with the lights and you blend toward the darks with the stump, okay? That way, as you're working into the dark or the shadows, you know, having that stump loaded with graphite's not going to adversely affect your drawing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
What was the graphite pencil or pen? What is that he was using? I missed that.
2B.
He's using like a 2B, well, he was using a 2B graphite stick in like a mechanical pen, you know, kind of like a drafting pencil. But
Right.
yeah, any 2B pencil, but you know, I would actually recommend softer pencils, like a 6B, 8B, 9B. Mainly because they are so soft, you can really build up some very, very strong darks with them. Okay, they're a little bit more messy and a little harder to control in some ways, but you know, again, you can get much, much stronger darks that way. And it's just a matter of getting used to not, you know, putting so much pressure on the paper as you're using the tool with those really soft pencils. Okay. Like at the Benson Center, we normally use like an ebony pencil. And ebonies, you know, they only come in like, you know, one hardness. And it's somewhere around about a 6B. Okay. Anyway.
We use a blending stump here instead of our finger because a blending stump provides a sharper tip. Our fingers also release oils, and if these oils mix with the graphite, it can lead to an unattractive appearance in the drawing. Not to mention that these smudges that are created by the finger can be difficult to erase because of the oils that have been released. Therefore, it's a good idea when working with graphite to stick with using a blending tool such as a blending stump to blend the graphite. When blending is used as an application technique, we can go back and forth between graphite applications and using the blending stump until we arrive at a tone that is acceptable for the subject that we're drawing. An added advantage to using a blending stump to blend the applications is we can create softer edges. This is especially useful when creating the edges of shadows, which are naturally blurred. The last graphite application technique we'll discuss is called rendering. Rendering is most often used as an application technique for charcoal, since charcoal is much easier to lift or remove from the surface than graphite. This doesn't mean that rendering can't be used for graphite applications, however. Rendering is focused on removing material from the surface, so an eraser is used to remove the areas of highlight or lighter value. This takes place, of course, after some graphite has been applied to the surface, whether by using a pencil or if powdered graphite applications have been applied with a brush. Of course, all the lighter tones are removed using the eraser. And by adjusting the amount of pressure placed on the eraser, some of the mid-tones can be developed as well. Rendering is seldomly an erasing process on its own. Usually there are additive processes as well. In this case, we can go back and add a bit of darker tone to the area of shadow. Therefore, when it comes to graphite drawing, rendering is really a process of erasing and adding graphite, working back and forth until we arrive at a gradation of value or tone that's acceptable for the subject that we're drawing. So even though when it comes to rendering, the lighter values are typically addressed first, rendering is often a combination of different application techniques. Here we've erased out areas. We've also used circling to create some of the graphite gradations, and then we've blended applications using a blending stomp to smooth these transitions of tone and value. Lacoste rendering is a combination of adding graphite and removing graphite from the surface. A variety of interesting textures can be created, unlike what we would see in blending alone or even circling alone.
So does this scene look
This guy.
familiar to you? How about this? Have you ever been at a show where this happened? Oh man.
If you enjoyed this video, I just want to let you know there's so much more to discover over at thevirtualinstructor.com. We have a ton of lessons on drawing and painting, which are all broken down into easy to understand videos and lessons. In fact, today I'd like to invite you to take a look at 3 of our course modules for free. You can check out 3 of our course videos and the ebooks that correspond with them. Just click on the link in the upper right-hand corner to learn more about that. As always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, do we have fun with that?
Yay.
Yay. Okay. What's going on here? All right, close that. All right, just trying to get to the next thing here. All right, so anybody got any questions about that? Lawrence, did you learn anything from that?
No.
No. You knew it all.
No, that's been drilled in my head 100 times. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
But I do have the lead holder.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's
like a mechanical pencil. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's actually cheaper, to buy, like a dozen pieces of lead than it is to keep going out buying a dozen pencils.
Well, okay. Yeah. But the advantage with the pencil is that you can shape them in different ways. So again, it just depends on how you draw, right? Now, if you're,
I don't know what you mean by shape them.
Well, you can, like with a graphite pencil, you can get a pencil sharpener that will sharpen them to these very, very long drawing points.
I have that.
Okay.
They have a little thing that you stick the pencil in and spin it in a circle.
Yeah.
And it will get it like almost a ½ inch long from point to the lead itself.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It could be a lethal weapon, actually.
It could. You can put your eye out with it. The thing is,
sandpaper to the pencil, mechanical pencil, just as easy as the regular pencil.
Yeah, you can. You can use like those sandpaper boards, just like you would with charcoal. There's lots of different ways of sharpening, your pencil. And in some cases, you have like, if you had a series of soft pencils, you could take the time with an X-Acto knife to sharpen like some of these to a very extremely long point. Others you could shape to a shorter point and then cut like a chisel shape to it. So again, it's a more effective drawing tool for laying in like broad passages of tone or something like that. There's lots of different techniques, for shaping your pencil leads. You can also work with graphite blocks, like sticks of graphite that are kind of rectangular. They also come in these very, very large, almost like kids' crayons, these enormously fat, round cylinders. And again, you can take one of those cylinders and you can, if you want to take the time, you can take an X-Acto knife and you can whittle away at it and you can fit, cut it down to like a chisel edge on one side, and the other side you can sharpen to a point. So you have a two-sided tool, right? And then of course you've got the middle where you hold it mostly, that if you wanted to lay in a broad tone, you just lay the whole piece down on the paper and work with it, see?
Do you have one of those cylinders?
Oh yeah.
I mean, can you turn around and grab one out the back there behind you?
No, but I'll show you one this afternoon. Okay.
Okay.
I'll get out a whole collection of different sizes of graphite.
Because I wasn't familiar with that, what you were talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are like, you know, it's like they're as big. See that marker?
Uh-huh.
That big fat Sharpie? They're as big as that. And it's all just solid graphite. Okay.
It's just one big lump of graphite, like
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Big graphite stick.
that could get messy.
Well, yeah, it could, and it could be fun too. You know, because you can be real gestural with it and all. And in fact, now, one thing I wanted to point out, okay, in this previous video, notice that the guy was holding the pencil in what we call a tripod or a writing grip, right? He was holding it the same way that you would write a letter or anything else, okay? And, you know, if you're going to be working flat on a table and not elevated, then, okay, you know, that's probably going to be more comfortable for you. And if you're drawing small, then, you know, you can get away with that and you can work with it and it's just fine, right? There's no real definite right or wrong, right? It's just a different way of approaching it, but it has its limitations, right? And the limitation is that unless you're doing a lot of fairly precise rendering over the entire piece, then you really don't have the opportunity to get sort of these loose, free, sort of gestural, you know, strokes, you know, with your pencil and things. And so I'm going to show you another video. And now this guy, he's using, again, I think he's using graphite as a medium.
I never could grasp how to hold a pencil, you know, like way back here and draw. I never could grasp that.
Okay,
I
well,
feel like I had no control.
well, that's the idea. See, you know, you give it up a little bit of control, but what you give up with the control, then you gain in having more expressive and gestural line work. See? So like if you were Edgar Degas, right? And Degas was a master draftsman, right? He, you know, he drew with that process you're talking about. So he used that underhand grip with his pencil, and he was able to make all these amazingly fluid and varying lines so that he could basically tell you as he moved around the shape of a form what the light was doing on that surface, whether it was in shadow, whether it was in light, whether it was a sharp edge, whether it just disappeared. And you see, you know, building up that kind of control.
And you're another person that holds his paintbrushes the same way, and I just can't figure out how the hell you do that.
Well, it's
your hand is steady.
Yeah, but it's practice. See, it's just practice.
But when you get older, it don't hold as steady anymore.
It does though. See, it does. Okay, because when you're holding that brush loosely in your hand and you're painting or drawing from your shoulder is a lot more stable than your fingers, right? Your fingers might shake. You know, your shoulder doesn't tremble, right? So
mine trembles from the wrist to the hand.
Yeah, but you see, again, if you're holding it loosely and you're working from the shoulder and you're not trying to move that wrist, but you're really moving your arm, you're going to have a much smoother paint stroke than if you try to do it from your hand or your wrist, okay? Because now all of us, as we get older, and, you know, we all have our good days and our bad days, you know. My hands are pretty steady, okay? But even some days they're not as steady as, you know. And so, you know, working from the shoulder, you know, much more successful for me than trying to, you know, hold it like a pencil and paint, you know, because again, if your hand is shaking, you can't be that precise, right? But if you're holding it as an underhand, you know, again, you're moving your shoulder, you know, you're not moving your hand. So when you lay that brush down, you know, you can make a much smoother paint stroke and be much more accurate about where you put it, right? there's arguments for both. All right. You know, again, I encourage you, experiment, play, find what works best for you. But, you know, give the other process a chance. You know, I think you'll find in the long run, it will help you improve your overall artwork. All right. So now this next video is an interesting video, and he talks about a concept. It's called force. All right. Or he calls it force. It's also referred to as rhythm, you know, having a rhythm in your drawing, right? You know, rhythm and movement, right? So I'm going to share this with you. Listen carefully, because, you know, he says some things in there that you can really key in on that are very, very useful. Let's get him all the way back at the very beginning. Okay. Here you go, Coco.
Oh, this video is brought to you by Squarespace, a site builder with all the tools you need to create your own site to showcase and sell artwork. Mike Matese, the author of the Force Method books, wanted to check out the Proko studio recently, so I invited him over, and while he was here, I also got him to film a few demos.
Hey guys, this is Mike Matese. I'm the creator of the Force drawing series. I'm going to be covering the basics of Force with you over these next 3 videos. First, I'm going to share with you the types of line that I've seen in the past. One of the common ones is this. I'll call this the hairy line because it feels hairy. The second one.
Nobody's ever done that, right?
Looks like this. And then the third line is this. So this artist here,
by accident,
off of little thoughts, right?
Oh.
This comes from just being scared, right? Worried and nervous about trying to be really accurate to the line. I totally get it. I've been here. Believe me, I've been through the like fear of, oh, I got to try and get this right. This is so difficult, and I got to see if this measurement is correct. And being really, really careful through this process. Artist B is usually the whatever artist, right? It's like, it's something like this, it's something like that. So they're just kind of scribbling around. And what I'm going to teach you today is C. So in C, we are trying to get from here to here, or 1 to 2, all in one stroke. This mark on the piece of paper, to me, actually represents a force. Okay, so here I'll draw this really nice and big. The line itself has this coming from, this apex, or what I was calling the main event.
You might also refer to it as a gesture.
Force is coming from one place and we're directing it to the next, right? So directional force isn't always the same line. Okay? It's like, it could be this, it could be this, it could be somewhere in between, or it's got some curve, but it's not super strong. What determines how straight or curved a line is with its applied force. There's a secondary force, right? And this force, we had directional here. The secondary force is this orange zone. And that's inside this line, because the line is the contour of the body. So you got to keep that in mind. As you're drawing these lines, it's the edge of the figure. Force is always inside the figure, pushing its way out. It's never the other way around. So here we are, we're pushing out, right? This is applied force. And based on how much force is pushing into each one of those lines will determine how curved it is, right? So this one on this page is definitely the winner when it comes to applied force. This curve is like really, really strong, really strong. Like so. Now, I almost picture it like a comet. Like here's this comet and it's like shooting its way across the paper and all this applied force is pushing its way in there. And that's why this line is so bent, right? It might have been like this. And now all this applied force is pushing into it, so it gets bent like this, like a comet, and it's getting pushed, right, from inside the body. It's about, function is balance, right? So we're trying to find balance in the figure, but that balance comes from all these forces creating these systems of rhythms that come together to create the entire figure. When I'm drawing a model, one of my other secrets here to how I draw a figure with force is I think about the model standing prior to their pose. So let's say that my pose is going to be like this. So the leading edge in this pose is this shoulder. So as I draw it, I'm going to come up with force up my rib cage, come up, over, and down, and smash into this shoulder, right? So that's how the drive is going to occur. You want to think about time, right? Zero state is past. That's the coming from. Then there's the pose, right? You just see this picture of a guy like this, and that's the present. And then there's the future, there's the going to, which I use a lot when I'm drawing, which is if the guy's like this, what would be more of this? More would be bending down even further and pushing even further into that shoulder, putting, you know, more weight on my leg, stretching this leg out further, right? I always want to know like what's just beyond where that pose is. So that's the future. If I were to now draw the pose that I took physically, it would have been all the stretching over the top side of my rib cage, pushing down into this shoulder. So suddenly it's like, oh, I got all this energy coming from here and smashing down into the shoulder. And I was doing this, my leg over here, my strong leg was, you know, folding up underneath me, right? It's like a really strong structural leg. And then my other one was off the page, right? It's like this, and then my head was like over here. And the applied force is right here, where I felt it in the pose, right? It's like driving into this shoulder. See, so that's where all the drama is at. And like, boom, right? Pushing into the shoulder, pushing into the shoulder. I want that power, right? I want that force and power to drive into that shoulder. And that gives me the opportunity to express myself right on another level. It gives my drawings more power and drama to them because I understand where that leading edge is. All right, so let's take this idea and we'll take a look at some photographs, right? Some poses, and I'll do some drawings with leading edge as the primary idea. So here we are in our first pose. The model is actually doing something pretty similar to what I just took, right? I'm not starting at the leading edge. I'm actually starting earlier, right? So this is going to be the almost where the pelvis is, right? I'm going to ride over the top of the rib cage, and then I'm going to go down into the shoulder. So the reason for that is force is based on momentum, right? We used the airplane metaphor before, and I want to be coming in motion. So if I were to just sit here and try to draw the shoulder, I don't really have that much power behind me to get into that. So I start over here, right? I air draw. I call this the soft touch approach, by the way, or ghosting, right? I'm like air drawing. I start making marks. And I get down over here, and I really want to push into them. So my mind has had the chance to think, oh, I'm going to come up and over this mountain, and I'm going to smash my way down into this shoulder. So, and this is how I would begin. Here I can feel there's pushing out on the rib cage. That's not the leading edge. This is the leading edge of this pose. But anywhere where you see a curve, there's going to be an apex to it, and that's where the most applied force is pushing out, with this guy being the leading edge of the pose. Right? So while we're here, and as well, I'll try to finish this one off quickly and just go through the rest of it. We'll talk later about how I'm doing this and how I'm doing it as quickly as I can. Remember, the line is force, right? So I'm just putting down lines to help me understand the powers of the pose. Right? Sometimes artists get a little frustrated at the start, I think, with drawing force because I'm asking for these really blunt supplies, right? And everyone wants to get into the details. And I get it, you know, the details make you feel more accomplished, you know, while you're drawing, but I do that purposely. The reason we're drawing with blunt tools at the start is because I want you focusing on big ideas, not small ideas. In a way, the bluntness of this is making me not get too fixated on small stuff, small information. This force is going to the shoulder and exactly on. And it's just like this. I don't want to take too much more time. Let's see, we got this arm over here. This into the palm of his hand and his fingers. Last but not least, his head is like crunched in here. So there's our drawing, and leading edge drove the way. Okay? So this one's challenging because it's really tough to say where the leading edge is. This is a contrapposto pose. It means that there's this balance happening between the ribcage and pelvis, right? So I'm going to pick on this one. I'm going to really try to say that the leading edge in this is for pelvis. So I'm coming off the rib cage to make my way there. Right? Again, I want some track in front of me, like like having a car, right? And I'm feeling this out. I'm ghosting and I'm drawing lightly. I want to feel out how to get over here. There it is. Here is the most exciting turn in the racetrack. And then I can start really like pounding into it. Like, God, I really want to feel that hit. And that hit came from her back, right? The force of her back, the force of the edge of her ribcage, which is here, is pushing here, right? So here's my orange zone, applied force zone, right? It came from up here. Here's the arrow, and it smashed into her hip. Hopefully you'll notice as I'm drawing, I'm trying to use very dramatic or exciting language, right? Like smashing into the hip, or driving or flying, right? These are all metaphors that deal with physics. Because drawing to me is physical, right? It's me and basically my person, my body, and my awareness in this world of how physics work. And I'm trying to bring that to the table. I know what it's like to drive a car or be in an airplane or ride a bicycle, and I'm feeling that sense of power and motion moving from one place in the body to the next. So from a leading edge standpoint, like, we're done. You know, I've already hit the leading edge. Now I'm just moving on to other rhythms in her body. And we're going to talk more about rhythm in a minute. But I want you to be aware of this idea of leading edge, how it works. So there's other forces again. You know, we have this force that we talked about at the beginning. It's like, wow, is that the leading edge? I chose this one. It feels like it's the real core of power. But there's force pushing out over there. There's a beautiful rhythm happening from her neck to her back. You can see it goes like this. We have her shoulder going like this and then sweeping up. And by the way, for those of you out there watching and thinking, oh, I really like this. I like this idea of how things connect, and I need to get more of that in my drawing, but I don't want my drawings to look like this, meaning with all this line and stuff in them. They don't have to. You know, this is like going to boot camp. You know, the idea here is for you to see the invisible, you know, to see how this actually all works, right? And that force is flowing from one place to another. In the end, you don't have to use saw type. These are all exercises that I've created over the many years of teaching to allow students to better understand how it all works. You know, I'm asking you, don't get caught up in the look of the drawing, even if you do like it. It's more of an abstraction of understanding how things work in the body and how there's flow, how there is leading edge, all these ideas to create more drama in your drawing experience and in the drawings themselves. So let's just imagine for a moment that this is a road. These are cliff faces, and maybe the ocean is out here. There's the sun. But it's pretty dramatic, and it's very dramatic terrain. And force, you know, is about like moving through this. So force is very much about speed and momentum, right? And I want to feel myself like go through this road. And every time I hit a curve, that's where the most applied force is again. And I want to really feel that, right? So every one of these curves would be a new applied force pushing on a directional, right? All those insides. So, like I said, my favorite metaphor here is driving, race car driving. What we want to do here is try to get our mind into a place of thinking we're actually driving through the figure. So we kind of come in like this, and it should sound like this in your head as you're drawing with force, right? Hopefully you hold on, right? It'll go, and fall into the ocean. Right, something like that. Right, that's where we want to get to, not giving grandma the Lamborghini in this case. I can't crawl along this road and truly get a sense of force and momentum and speed and G's and everything else that goes with it. Now, it's not to say that, you know, you should drive / draw with force like this, right? It's just way too fast. Like, I have no control over what I just did, right? So you want to find this fine line between moving fast enough to feel that you're drawing with force and yet slow enough to control it. So I'm going to move around. Now, where is the leading edge? I'm going to say in this one that it's actually this side of her ribcage. I'm going to say that she's pushing her whole body that way, and her rear end and her arm and her head are sort of tails to that, or in animation would be called like a secondary action. Right? It's like, this is the primary, she's pushing that way, and everything else is like coming off of her. You see, so already my mind's in this place of movement. one of the questions while I'm drawing here I get asked all the time is, how do you draw with force and keep proportion though in place? Which is a very valid question. Well, if I soft touch it, first of all, it's like I'm getting to see the whole picture slowly evolve. Right? So I'm not having to commit to like a little place and then hoping I'm going to get it all right. Am I measuring? Sure, I'm measuring. Like I'm aware of positive and negative space, you know, what's above and below me. It's almost like I have a graph or a grid in my mind. I just don't want that to be the reason I draw. Right? The reason I draw is because I want to understand the forces of the figure and how they work. But I'll keep all those other ideas in mind. Like when I get to this shoulder and here's her rear end, I want to know if it's going to line up in the right place or not. I want to be aware of that. And that's really important because if the proportions or the placement is wrong, then that means chances are the drawing will be wrong, meaning it won't even work right because I'm mislocating things, right? The location of moments in the body is based on how it works. This is something I'm not really going to go into in these videos, but force darkness, you know, the line darkness isn't just power, but it can also represent texture. Right? So there I'm like, there's this hard bone. I want to stick that hard bone out there. Looking at her general proportion, right? Measurement, I'm just trying to see if I'm right. I want to get the perspective right. I want to see that, you know, this is the angle between her feet. Look at that foot, right? The ball of her foot's really exciting. You can see how her ankle's in here, and yet, you know, her foot, we're coming over the top of her foot like this, and it's really like stretching and being pounded down onto the ground right there. Really, really fun. The better you get at this through experience and exercising it, the less air drawing you'll have to do, and the more immediate the lines become, right? And suddenly you could draw full figure drawings, quite honestly, in like 30 seconds. And we'll get to that a little bit later with shape. Here's pretty much the drawing. I've created all the rhythms in her body. I want you to see that her whole pose is here, and I've done it through rhythms. So we're going from here to here, I'm going through and around, right? That connects up to her leg. Her leg beautifully goes from outside to inside to outside. Let's push this a little more down so it feel like that, right? This goes from front to back. So the system is all here. I can actually travel from her hand and her wrist, right, through her arm, to the elbow, up through here, down through the pelvis, over into one of the legs, all the way down to her foot, right? So now there's a solid road from her wrist to her foot, right? And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is trying to find these rhythms. All right, so this one, the leading edge is the far shoulder, coming up the back. Now, the irony here is I can't see that shoulder, but I can tell by the rest of the pose that that's where I want to drive. Here's the leading edge. I'm going to tone it orange. It's right there. It's beyond his head, behind his head there. This is a C. You can see it here. It's a backwards C. But there's an S going on in here as well. So here, I'm not going to push too hard in this, even though it's a leading edge, because his head's going to sit on top of it right there. But what is going on in here is we have a C with an S inside of it. Why? Because he's turning. Right? So you have this rotation that's coming down and around here. It also helps me with form, which again, we'll talk about in the next video. And then that gets me down into here. Right? And then I'm going to go through here, through the pelvis. And then I'll get out through his strong legs. I always want to draw through, you know. Don't let the body block you from understanding what's going on. Okay? I'm aware of like his leg truly connecting up to his other side of his pelvis, right? I want to make sure I'm thinking through the body. You know, hopefully you're also getting to see my sort of level of freedom. Sometimes too much because I keep cropping, but just how I'm like flowing around and moving. You know, I don't want to stress about this. I'm giving myself room to breathe and think and to see if I'm landing in the right locations, right? So there's that whole measurement piece, but also that I'm understanding how this whole thing flows. The guy's pushing into the shoulder or coming out the back over here. In the back, it goes 3 different ways for us. You come up the back from the spine, and it goes to one shoulder, the neck and head, and the other shoulder. So it's like a little explosion that basically occurs there. This cheese about right there. So his head's like here. And again, I'm not being specific right now. We're not up to that. So again, the goal is the path. Right? Look, I can get from down here with the foot. I'm all the way up, push into the, I come across through and around to the back of the pelvis. See, I want that to connect to this. And then I also want it to connect with the stomach, right, with his lower abs, right? So that helps me draw through and make sure the stomach connects with the rear end, which connects with the leg. And then that's coming up like this, and we're going this way. We also can go this way, right, because you can see. So we've got those two paths coming up. They're both hitting into the shoulder right here. That's my leading edge, and then I shoot out the arm. Okay. So I think that's it for this first section. You know, we've covered a lot of ground, right? We talked all the way, you know, from the beginning with line. With line, we talked about directional and applied force, leading edge, rhythm, and driving, and trying to find those pathways in the figure, and the importance of thinking hierarchically, right? Big ideas first, and then you start piling on the other information.
Tired of not making any money with your art? Today's sponsor might be able to help you out. Squarespace makes it easy.
There we go. All right, guys, let's see. Somebody said in the chat. Nice, but plays could be longer. Okay. Anybody got any questions about that second video?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Okay.
It's, to me, is very amazing because listening to the gentleman talk, he talked about physics a lot. And when he finally said the word physics, it was just amazing because, you know, physics is like algebra. You always wonder, you know, when am I going to ever use this when you were in high school? And now finally I can, you know, I have a very different view of how how drawings are done. I can see the physical part of it and how the force. He just cleared a whole bunch. I mean, he just took the veil of ignorance off my face because the terms in which he said, the physical and the force. I understand that now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very good to me.
Yeah. His background, if you want to know, is he is an animator. All right. And so for him, drawing, you know, is an everyday thing. And what he's always thinking about is, you know, as he's drawing a character, it's like, okay, in the next frame, how are they going to change? You know, how is this going to evolve, right, to show a whole series of movements, right?
Yeah.
And if you spend a lot of time, you know, drawing around illustrators and animators and people like that, you know, you're going to find that, you know, what they're really looking for is they're not trying to just copy the figure. What they're trying to do is they're trying to create this sense of life and movement, you know, in the drawing so that you know, you feel the physicality of that figure, you know, that person, and, you know, living and breathing and moving, you know, and it's like finding that moment, you know, just before they turn their head or something like that. Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, and there's, you know, there are drawings, and I had mentioned like Edgar Degas, right? Now, the thing that's wonderful about Degas' drawings is that he was really a wonderful draftsman and could be very, very accurate, right, with his drawings. But at the same time, with that accuracy, he also had this energy, this movement. You know, you felt like that person was just kind of stopped right in the middle of motion, right? And he could capture that. A lot of artists can't do that. You know, their figures always look like they're just frozen, you know, that they're not going to go anywhere, right? And ideally, you know, you're, you know, building up your drawing skills, you want to work on both. You know, you want this sense of expression and movement and motion, you know, emotion in your drawing, and not just this very dry academic study, right? Because the thing about art is it's supposed to be an expressive medium. It's how, it's not just what did I see, but it's what did I see and what did I feel about that, right? And so it's really necessary, you know, to try to incorporate, you know, in your drawing skills, how to capture this sense of movement and motion and weight. You know, I use the word gesture and rhythm. He calls it force, okay? So, you know, different people have different terms for it, but, you know, we're all kind of talking about the same thing. And it's like, how do you make a drawing that's not going to put people to sleep, right? But that's going to look exciting, you know, it's going to, you know, have some emotion, some feeling to it, right? And we've seen examples of that. You know, when you look at Casey Bowles' drawings, right? You know, there's this beautiful rendering and softness to them, but at the same time, there's this energy and this life in them as well. See? And it's finding that balance, you know, between the two. Okay. Anybody else?
I thought it was very good.
Okay.
I thought it was great.
What did you like about it?
I liked when he did the curves. And I've noticed when I watch you draw, you do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the head first, but that main curve. And I've seen you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, you know, a lot of students, right? They have this idea that I'm going to start up here at the head and then I'm going to work my way down, right?
Right, but I've seen you do that big line, that curve.
Right. Yes. It's called the gesture, right?
The gesture.
Right. Yeah. And you see, you're not drawing the details. What you're trying to do is with that big gestural line, that very first one, is what you're doing, you know, the longest line in the figure. How do you get from the top of the head down to the foot, right? So what that's for is it sets up the scale of your drawing and where you're going to place it on the page. And then after that, then you can build all those other rhythms or movements off of that. Okay? So, anybody else? Questions before we go away? Anybody hungry?
Not particularly.
Not particularly, no? No? Okay. Anybody gonna have anybody anticipating a great lunch? No? Oh, well, gee. All right. Well, when you show up here this afternoon, if you wanna, you know, do a BYOB, you know, you can, you know, bring your own, whether that's coffee or a martini or whatever. It is Friday. You know, let's celebrate. We got through another week. Okay. Anyway, we will be back here at 2 o'clock, and I've got some of your work to share. I have a lot of things that are not drawings, though. Okay, and I'm just going to share what I got. Okay. All right, and we'll talk about all of it. All right.
All right.
This was great. This was great this morning. Very helpful.
All right. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good seeing you all. Hopefully we'll see you back this afternoon.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.